Yeah, I was one of the last of 30 or some boys. It was the two of us. They had one spot left. And again, these coaches had the brilliant idea, well, let's let them play one-on-one. And now all the boys are around the court, and this is this one-on-one game. And it was close. And back to when you miss a layup or you miss a shot, and that starts working, in you and against you and creating even a bodily response.
Desperation.
So I lose, he wins, and the humiliation and the shame of that made me, my junior and senior year, particularly senior year in high school, by then so determined to never be in that situation again. And if you think for a second that humiliation and shame stayed only on the court,
out of your mind.
You're out of your mind.
With God, there is always more. More love, more life, more freedom. Welcome to Zoe's Exploring More with Michael Thompson. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Our Heavenly Father has provided many delightful ends for us along our journey, but He takes great care to see that we do not mistake any of them for home." Join me and the team as we explore the kingdom together, discovering the deep truths and offering encouragement for the journey. There is always more.
Welcome, friends and allies, to the Exploring More podcast. And we are wheels down, gonna land this expedition on shame and try to give some more encouragement, some more help, some more relief on this idea of moving from shame to more and more freedom. And thank you if you have joined us and been through the other ones. The opportunity to talk about it for 4 episodes, what Jay Stringer, what many others have written books about. How do we define it, understand it, how have we experienced it, the things that we've been talking about for several other episodes. It brings us to this place where I think last episode, talking about this predator, as Jay Stringer mentions it, that's not only chasing you, but wants to take another bite and another bite and another bite, and giving it quarter, right? Giving it residence, giving it a place in your story, even to the point that it affects you in a numerous amount of ways, but it's affecting you because it's infecting you.
Mm-hmm.
And it compromises us at the area, particularly of relationships, because the wounding often, if not always, happens.
It breeds isolation.
Yes.
Yes.
And so we hide. Mm-hmm. So I think in this episode, the hope of relief, treatment, care, and you want to be careful where you go. You need to be careful where you go for care.
I just want to say, chances are, it's a really risky thing to make yourself vulnerable, and to try to enter into sharing some of these shame-laden places with other people. Yeah. I just want to tell you, it's probably not going to go well the first time, because there's way more people out there that don't know how to listen. And I'm speaking as a guy that
learning how to listen
and has been a really bad listener in the past.
Yeah.
Trying not to do that anymore. But my experience has been there's more guys out there that don't know how to listen well and empathize than there are.
Yeah.
I mean, go look up Brene Brown, Sympathy versus Empathy on YouTube. Maybe we can put a link on that.
Yeah.
Because what we usually get is, wow, that really sucks. You want a sandwich? Rather than somebody that climbs down in the hole with you.
So many other, before we go, you just made me think of a couple others, like man, that really sucks. Well, what did you do? Well, what did you contribute to that? You probably shouldn't have been there. You probably shouldn't have. I mean, giving commentary.
Why didn't you just walk away?
Right. Giving commentary, giving advice, giving those things. I mean, that has happened to all of us.
Yeah.
And it just
it
just reinforces the shame, though, SJ.
Yes, 100%.
It just reinforces it when you try to summon your courage, and so I think that's why this is such a fragile thing, and why so few get relief and freedom from it, is because even the attempts that they've made has reinforced. You and I were just talking with a guy a few weeks ago who went to the person in that particular church who was in charge of that kind of care, and
soul care.
And he said it went so badly that it reminds me of, we were talking about Robin Williams last time. It reminds me of Robin Williams and Patch Adams when he goes to his psychiatrist because he's checked himself in because he's harmful to himself. And what happens is he connects with another patient, helps them, goes and tells the psychiatrist that, hey, I connected with somebody last night. I really helped them. Empathy, care, help them, find a path from the fear that Rudy had. He said, I want to do more of that. I want to do more of that. I'm checking out. And the psychiatrist, of course, says, well, that's what I do. And Patch Adams says, but you suck at it.
Yeah.
You don't even look at people when they're talking to you.
Right.
So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back on the Exploring More podcast.
That's great.
Heart of a Warrior is definitely a place where I feel like men can come as they are, right? So inviting a man to come as they are and to find out that there's more for them, right? That God has more in store for them, and more in store in the sense of things that maybe they haven't yet known or uncovered, I think is why I would invite another man to Heart of a Warrior. To welcome them into a brotherhood where they can feel like they're not alone in a world where we often feel like we're the only ones going through something. So just that simple invite has the opportunity to change the course of another man's story drastically. So that's why I would invite a man to Heart of a Warrior.
Welcome back to the Exploring More podcast, where we struck a nerve on this thing. So it's just a hard caution to be careful who you share with.
And I don't want to say don't be discouraged. Be discouraged if you want to be,
right.
But please don't give up.
Right.
Because there's probably 1 in 10 guys that is actually going to handle your heart well if you try to engage and be vulnerable with. Please keep trying, because it's so worth it.
And here's what, come out of my seat. And here's what shame does. Shame blames that crap on you.
Oh, yeah.
That went badly.
Right.
Because you're this kind of cause.
Oh, my
You're
gosh.
some kind of lost cause.
Yeah, man.
And it might feel like this person is, but shame will wait patiently, even in that moment, to come after you later and said, see?
Mm-hmm.
See,
I told you you shouldn't have told him.
I told you should have told him. See,
yeah,
you're too far gone. See,
to your point from the last episode, if you want to visualize the spirit of shame in the spiritual realm, think of Lawrence Taylor. I mean, huge defensive ends, linebackers. This guy is huge. He is a force to be reckoned with, but we have the empowering presence of God,
the grace of God
to overcome. So
yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So we're just gonna walk through. I've got somebody that I really like.
Yeah.
What they shared, PhD in psychology counseling with Eric Spiegel out of the Attuned Counseling Group. I think they're out of Colorado, but I came across his stuff and I went, this is really good.
Well, let me say before you do that, because I've got something out of Jay's book that I want to share too, but we're not huge proponents of like here's the 3 things you need. Here's the list of 3 things to do.
Yeah.
In most regards, I would say that in this case, overcoming shame can feel so convoluted, so foggy, so I am lost in the mist, in the shroud of my own shame. I need a direction.
Yeah.
And so I think this kind of list of things gives that direction in such a way that you can then embark on the nuanced journey of unraveling shame from your life.
I agree. I think I found this stuff from this counselor somewhere between our episodes 3 and 4, and it was affirming to me of what we were trying to do in the first 3 or 4 episodes. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing that ways to move into healing, the healing of shame. That's what this episode's about. Moving. It's movement, right? And man, that just feels like already that's a tall order when you are under it, and the effect and that it's having on you because of the infection that it is in you. So back to the ways to, I really like what he says first. Use language to label, to give it a name. Use language, express. You can you can journal that.
Yeah.
You can
100%.
Talk about that.
That to me, the way that landed on me, that's the beginning of the journey of bringing these things into the light.
Yes.
Even before you share it with someone else, write it down.
Yeah.
Share it, bring it out into the light rather than the swirl of it that's in your head and in your mind.
And it's hard. So, and it can be challenging to do that when you're not being affected by it, when you're not in an episode with it. Mm-hmm. But what if God's grace, his empowering presence, is loving enough that yes, it comes up again, and this time you move differently.
Yep. Moving
from shame, to healing, because healing is where freedom is. So I like this idea that he says it often takes some time to realize that you are feeling shame while it is happening. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's a great sentence. When first recognizing that shame is getting in the way of being the kind of person that you want to be, or is getting in the way of your internal peace. I love that. Mm. Yes, the disturbance of internal peace. We would say your settledness. You're unsettled versus settled. It is most important to name the shame as early in the shame process as you can. Mm-hmm. So he's saying that very reality of experiencing it is actually the invitation to observing it.
Right.
And how can you move?
What is this?
Yes. How can you move from it on you to then, looking at it and describing? So maybe a journal. Move
from the automatic to the intentional.
The voice, not to text, a voice memo. Mm-hmm. How do you take that kind of self-awareness into the courage to be, offering what is this? Name it. What's it feel like? Where do you feel it? Pulling words to your emotional experience allows for connection between your right brain, negative emotions, and your left brain, positive emotions and languages. Naming the shame, literally telling yourself, I am feeling shame. So I go back to, okay, we did something right. And what is that feel like, look like, taste like, smell like, sound like? Shame has all of those things. And those are huge to the healing process, identifying Absolutely. And naming it, giving it words.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the encouragement is that you can engage in this on your own, right? It's almost safer to do it on your own.
At least collect the dots.
But I just had it had just occurred to me when I was sitting with Nita, my counselor, a couple of years ago, and she started asking me questions about certain events in my life. She watched me change physically.
Yeah.
She said, okay, where'd you go?
Yeah. That's a very trained and very
100%,
very
but
skilled.
it helps me to see what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
You can
I get it.
You can observe. You can learn to observe. Like, wait a minute, where did I go there? What was that? She said, and then she rattled off. You looked away from me and 100 yards off in that direction. Your breathing got shallow. You tensed up. Where did you go? What were you feeling?
Yeah.
Where were you feeling it?
Yeah.
That's the thing that
Tell me the
memory.
story. Put words to it.
Yes. So
because what's going to happen after that,
you
SJ?
can do this.
I know what she did, and I know what we would do, what you need to do. After that identification, have you had any experience with that before? Can you remember a time can you remember how long this has been happening? I mean, the next question at the right time, right? Let's name it. Let's describe it. What are you feeling? And then where did that training come from? How did you come by this?
This is the practical application of what we've been talking about from the beginning. Capturing the moment that the symptoms appear. If it's arresting you, what if you could turn the tables and arrest it and say, wait a second, this is the result way downstream. Let's head back upstream.
Yeah, here's the beautiful thing
go on
about
that journey.
Here's the beautiful thing about what you're advocating there is if you can distance yourself and name it and share with what you're seeing, describing it, that's actually you. So when you're in it, right? When you're in it, you're tangled up in it. But if you can untangle and bring some words and describe what you're feeling, now you're in a different space.
And it's actually you. I love the way you said
it's
that,
you.
man.
You're the observer. But if you never observe it, never give it words, you just stay tangled. You stay a victim of it. You stay a casualty of it. You stay tethered to it under its effect. So I think that's a good first step, and in doing so, you actually are separating yourself from shame.
Right.
When you're describing it, when you're articulating it.
Right. Because
your brain now is in a different mode of expressing. Giving it's like it's giving the news of it, it's reporting the news.
I love the observation deck. You're out of it because when you're in it, this is going back to the first episode in the series. It steals your identity. It is shame is a theft of identity. And
your voice too, your glory
all
too,
those
all
things,
of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so if you can arrest it in a moment and say, okay, I see it. What's really happening?
Yeah.
And then you can start to go on that journey of, and it doesn't automatically happen that way. Like, oh, I'm feeling that way. Now I can step up to the observation deck.
Yeah.
This is what he's talking about. The arresting of the shame in the moment is taking control as much as you can. That might mean writing down the time you felt like this before.
Yeah.
That might mean writing down the very thing that led you to make this agreement, and just taking the control as you can take it.
I just had this little comical view of, if something shaming is going on, how can you get out of there, right? How can you, if somebody's yelling at you, threatening you, accosting you, accusing you, and it's a parent or it's a spouse. It's not like, hang on, let me get to the observation deck. It's like kind of, can you get out of there? Can you see how the enemy's using them and at work in them to get to you? And so distancing yourself from the wounding, from the wounder, is a part of this observation deck.
And by the way, the wounder might have been gone for 10 or 15 years.
And that's true too.
But it brings you right back
to
that moment.
The reinforcements are coming in the management program.
When you're living with a wounder, we've talked about this before, when you're living with the chief wounder, it's really difficult.
To get healing, yeah. So I think the second part of this that Spiegel talks about is grounding.
Mm-hmm.
Because that fight, flight, freeze, all of that has out of control. It's now these cycles.
It's a shock response.
These cycles are happening.
Mm-hmm.
So breath, because if you're now caught up in that, it feels so counterintuitive, but now it's sweeping you away. What does it look like to ground and lean in or push to shore from the current of this to try to get safe?
Stand up.
Yeah.
Yes, in the water.
To get in some space where this, is not this trauma, this wounding, this accusation and shame is not having its way. So that's an act of our will. Very, very hard to do, but very, very important. Can you take a breath? Can you take another one?
Mm-hmm.
Can you identify what you're feeling? Can you use your words? Can you describe it? And can you ground? The grounding part is the part that you actually, with your will, are saying, I'm okay. All right, maybe I'm not okay yet, but I'm positioning my body and my emotions to start to be and move towards being okay.
Yep.
It's not okay what happened. It's not okay but you're giving yourself a chance with the breath work and the grounding that you are you're not underwater.
Yeah.
You're changing the position, the chemistry, the oxygen that's needed from short breath to deeper. All of that stuff.
All that stuff matters, man, because you can go right into this cycle of fear response. It's a physical response.
Nervous systems are engaged.
I won't say I love doing it. I do the cold plunge.
Mm-hmm.
The hardest part about the cold plunge, if you've never regulated breathing before, is regulating your breathing.
Sure.
Because you're putting your body into a shocked position. You're only doing it for 3 minutes, but man, that 3 minutes is long.
Yeah.
When the water's 36 degrees.
Yeah.
But if you can breathe, box breathing is in through the nose for 4 seconds, out through the mouth for 4 seconds, in through the nose for 4 seconds, out through the mouth. And I learned that as a first responder. But if you can do that in that moment, it's amazing how things slow down.
Yeah.
If you're focusing on your breathing and bringing your body under regulation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
to be able to see things.
So, which is hard to do.
It's very hard to do.
But the invitation is to practice that, because shame can, and I think it often does, have a shock response, and that's where the fight, flight, or freeze comes. So, instead of that cycle completing itself, and then taking you on into behavior of comfort and addiction, which is not even always happening in moments later.
A shame spiral.
No, this is 6 hours after. This is 10 hours after. This is that night. This is the next day. I mean, this thing encumbers your ability to relate to yourself, to God, to others. That's how powerful shame can be. So,
man, I can't not think of one of our favorite movies, Seabiscuit. And in the very beginning, there's this kind of a monologue about his life.
His story, yeah.
And his story, the horse's story. And the very end of it is that in the end, he did what they trained him to do. He lost. And so what have you been trained to do in the context of shame?
Yeah.
And the wonderful redemptive story in Seabiscuit, the underdog, the comeback story in it, is he gets retrained.
Yeah.
And he casts off his old training and becomes who he was really meant to be. I know we're talking about a horse, but it doesn't matter. It's relevant to what we're talking about.
There is, and there's levels of there's scenes in our lives where, yes, we were embarrassed. Embarrassed is different than shame. Humiliation, right? I mean, but it's kind of this gateway to, I remember I've told you the story before, 7th grade basketball tryouts. This is when, not everybody played. 7th grade, if you didn't make it, you kind of went and played in a rec league or found another place to play. These are the guys playing for our junior high. It was a junior high team. Coaches were arranged for. They weren't dads. They were coaches that were part of a system. So anyway, there's two of us, me and this guy Shannon. He was shaving.
In the 7th grade.
And yet I was one of the last of 30 or some boys. It was the two of us. They had one spot left. And again, these coaches had the brilliant idea, well, let's let them play one-on-one. And so I lose. And I couldn't get out of there fast enough. My dad wasn't in the gym, I don't think, because what I remember was leaving the gym, when the tryouts were over. And the other boys were still there. It was a couple hours of tryouts. And there was a lot of other boys that were still there too, but now all the boys are around the court, and this is this one-on-one game. And it was close. And back to when you miss a layup or you miss a shot, and that starts working, in you and against you, and creating even a bodily response.
Desperation.
So I lose, he wins, and the humiliation and the shame of that made me, my junior and senior year, particularly senior year in high school, by then so determined to never be in that situation again. And if you think for a second that humiliation and shame stayed only on the court,
out of your mind.
You're out of your mind. And so I'll never lose again. I'll never be ill-prepared. How do I control?
I will always work harder. Yeah, man.
And next year, right, next time, the other response that's legitimate and unfortunate is, well, I didn't want to play anyway.
Mm-hmm. I hate basketball.
So we just, no, you hate being humiliated.
Right.
So that's back to the interpretation part. So what does it feel like 30 years later when you're losing a conversation, we'll call it?
Mm-hmm.
Or you see every conversation as a win-lose.
Mm-hmm.
And a tryout.
And win is good and bad. Yeah. Lose is bad.
So I love what this idea of grounding your body, finding an anchor point. He says it's this your nervous system is at work now. You're worked up.
Yes.
And you've got to deactivate that.
Yeah. Oh
That's
my
what
gosh.
I love the word he uses. This is something to deactivate that, to kind of come back down rather than caught up in the swirl of shame.
Yeah, as so many of us have been in Zoe and with guys around us, we're on this journey of learning how to listen well.
Yeah.
And Sherry's on that journey too. One of my favorite things that happened probably 4 or 5 months ago now was I was on a spiral. All of my energy, you've been around me long enough, my energy can elevate pretty quickly into intensity. And she had asked this wonderful question. She said, how can I help you regulate right now?
That's what a crossroads. How dare you ask me that? Or regulate this. I got to regulate you.
It stunned me into silence.
Did it? That's beautiful.
It stunned me into.
I love it.
You see that I'm out of control.
I'm worked up.
And you care enough to find out how to help me regulate that. Now, she's also said at times like, go split some wood.
What's
or
your problem? Yeah. Once you leave.
No, she does great, but she's tried that at times and said,
yeah.
I can't find a way to help you regulate your emotions right now, so I'm going to remove myself from this situation.
And that's with a grown man, right? When
Yes.
you have a child that's doing that, the same. What if that process would have been available to our parents when we were dysregulated, and they were calming rather than what's wrong with So
well, pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
When we think of
next time.
flight, fight, and freeze, what I love about this idea of grounding and breathing is what you're trying to do in self-care. In some self-care that's hard to get, but if you see it and you can practice this, is you are trying to get yourself from the unsafe space that you're in to a safe space or safer space where thought is available to you, not just reaction and confusion and all of that.
The timeouts available.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
And so that's just the beauty and the power, I think, of grounding yourself.
Well, I
and
love
breathing.
that we're recognizing and that you found this, because it does. We've talked a lot about the internal, the mental, but our physical bodies are affected by these things and are a part of being able to somehow wrestle control back and from the enemy and say, I got to operate differently in this arena. So I like the acknowledgement.
They're giving you the warning lights on the dashboard.
Mm-hmm.
If you keep driving, or if actually you accelerate to keep going, that's the stopping rather than accelerating away from the bear. That's the stopping and facing it. That is what I think is just really, really valuable in this process of. It gives you the chance to get on that observation deck and to be aware. You're bringing your faculties back together. You're coming back to a regulated space so that you can talk about it. Like, what's going on? What are you feeling right now? Describe that to me. The wild thing about not doing that is punishment's coming. I just want to say that. Shame always wants punishment. Somebody's getting punished. When shame is
somebody's got to pay.
Is the primary force at work
and
causing fight, flight, freeze.
Right.
Some payment is coming. There's some punishment.
When there's wages to be paid, someone's got to cough it up.
I know.
Yeah, man.
So if you can do those two things, right? If you can move in language, words, maybe some separation.
Putting words to it,
right?
Journaling.
I think this is the third thing that I like.
And then physical, understanding the physical, and it's important. Box breathing.
Yep.
All of that. Then what's the third thing?
Find some help.
Yeah.
Like you said, you read it, I think, in the past, that having isolation, what was the word that actually, was it Jay or Brene that you said, perpetuates shame? If the hiding, the darkness, the isolation.
Yeah.
All of those circumstances. So, we're cheering for you, man. It's to have the courage to stop the cycle, to move differently, and to exercise your will that is being compromised by this thing called shame.
Yeah.
And all of its little underlings: accusation, guilt, fear, and then to even take it further, those phrases and sentences that you are. And fill in the blank. And to see it is I think the beginning of, okay, where can I go with, you brought up the basement, where can I go with these things that I'm identifying?
And it's what's so interesting, what I have seen happen and I've seen it happening in my story, but also in others. But I'll just tell my story. When I heard Nita, I was at the
Women's
deepening weekend for
a year
women
and a half ago. Yeah.
Yeah, in 2023, and I hear Nita describe the importance of a talking day, and she presented herself to me because I honestly, yes, I heard her describe a talking day. I recognized, man, that's what I need. But it wasn't like I was living completely disoriented, centered on the false self, this, that, and then all of a sudden I had a talking day and I'm living in my true self. I'm on a journey of, 14, 15 years of unraveling all these things.
Yeah.
Then the moment comes when my heart is ready to be vulnerable, and God presents a person I can do that with. I'm not saying it's always magical that way. I'm just saying that when you release, if you open yourself up to the idea of being vulnerable with someone, you're releasing something internally and externally, I believe, in the spiritual realm, where God says, yes, I've been waiting for you to be willing to come up out of there.
Yeah.
I wanted to come down in there and get you, but I had to wait for you to come out.
Yeah.
I just feel like there's something. It's not the C.S. Lewis quote where a bone in the universe gets set yet, but it's an opportunity to say, I have a bone that needs to get set and I can't do it myself. Right?
Yeah.
So this idea of vulnerability being scary, and what we've been told, what shame tells us, is that opening up and being vulnerable about what happened to us or what we did is a killer. They're not gonna want to be with you. They're not gonna love you anymore. They're gonna isolate you.
Yeah.
When actually, not being vulnerable and keeping it to yourself is the thing that's isolating you.
Yeah.
So taking the risk. What does he say? Stringer says vulnerability requires risk, but it never bullies you to get there.
Yeah, it's good.
Dude, the key to vulnerability is movement towards personal integrity.
Yeah.
So like you're lying to yourself about this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think about two words that come to mind on that: curiosity and kindness.
Oh yeah, it's great.
To break these cycles is to see them. And then to see them and describe them, and even distance yourself by the grounding work of like that's not me, but goodness, and
it's not my fault that guy doesn't know how to listen to me.
Yeah, and so
because he said, well, that was dumb, or you shouldn't have done that. That's not about you.
Yeah, I want to come at this with one more path, which we've taught and lived in many, many times. So if shame has its day, if shame has its moment, that there's humiliation, there's accusation, there's
vows and agreements.
Yes. So that's where I want to go. So there's a wounding moment where
we could call it a shaming moment.
Shaming moment.
Yes.
And there's nobody there to help you sort it out or advocate for you or care for you. That's the moment that, let's say that happens in 7th grade on the basketball court. Again, just recognizing that humiliating moment. I think men share crap that's happened to them all the time.
I had a humiliating moment on the basketball court in 7th grade.
I know.
And I went the other way.
Right. So
I don't want to play basketball anyway.
Right. And so my point is that's the vow.
Yeah.
I'll show you, or I didn't want to play anyway. And you start to see some of the threads of these things when there's a wounding moment, wounders, and a wounding message. When you make that vow, I'll never, I'll always. And, just preceding that is an agreement. That's really the order, the wounding message, and you agree with it. It's not just I did something stupid, I'm stupid, and you sign for it.
Yep.
That's a elementary example of now that has power in your life. Now that's stored in your body. Now that's in your psyche, or your what we would call the biblical heart.
It's a
belief.
A viral operating system.
The belief system just got a new file. And we saw this in Inside Out 1 and Inside Out 2.
Oh, yeah.
They just did a brilliant job in that Pixar thing of here comes another ball. And how do we sort
another memory?
How do we sort these balls out?
Are they core memories?
Yes.
Or are they, yeah, man.
Fantastic illustration for what we're talking about. And so the power to fit in, the power to be wanted, the power to be invited. We're made for that relationally. So of course shame has its ability to hijack all of that. So when it has and when it did, that's what we're saying in the steps towards healing is identifying it. And now, what if we could break, or with the help of somebody else, what if we could break some of those? Literally, you call them. I like when you do the session legal. There's a legality to this.
They're contracts.
So if you have these contracts, if you have these incredible high interest rates, if you have these, and over here is $50,000 to pay all this off, you still have to make some kind of transaction. I'm not going to take the $50,000. This is not a consolidation loan. This is a full payment and more for what happened in my life, what happened in this time, and God's giving me His empowering presence and a bank account full of grace to transfer, to get this up out of the operating system, so that He can give us this.
Yep. That's so great, man. Because what's coming to my mind is my chains are gone. I've been set free. He's paid my debts, right? All of my debts have been paid by Him. Well, we believe that in the context of salvation, right? We think of it as, well, I'm not going to hell. But what you're talking about, what you're advocating for, is we can live more free now.
Yeah.
And I think that's what God says too.
Yeah.
So these debts are paid.
Yeah.
Quit paying these high interest loans. You don't have to pay them anymore. Tear up the contract. Take the money. Here's all this money. You can pay this loan off. But pay it. But you have to do it.
Yeah. I would say you've got to put in the account numbers.
You have to engage your will.
You've got to do, it's available. And I think that's where our model, anyway, of wounds and trauma that we carry, from wounding and traumatic moments with wounding and traumatic people, that's eventful in and of itself. And what it leaves us with is the agreements that we made and the vows that we declared that then perpetuate the false self construct,
just operate in the background.
That in which shame is a it's not, shame's not the byproduct. Shame is the fuel of that operating system so often. And so what is it to be unafraid, to be unhindered, and to be able to move differently? Well, there's a legal part of that. And then I think as we, in the spiritual realm, as we bring some of these files, as we find them, as God brings them up, as circumstances and events bring them up, as we bring those files, and I have said many times, I don't want this anymore. When I really see this operating in me, this competitiveness that will run over you, whether we're talking about a conference or retreat or how to build a fire. I mean, just, it doesn't.
And it's right next to your glory, dude.
I mean,
you make stuff better.
So all of that, thank you, man. But all of that is how connected and tight this is. And so I just want to say that breaking those vows and agreements, it just sounds like good old repentance, confession and repentance. I see it now. And I'm turning it in. I confess I have been subject to this. I see where it came from. I understand it. Jesus, here. I don't want to live under this anymore. And there's a transaction at Faith Federal that is so important.
I mean, dude,
that he says he takes it.
We can't overstate it. If you need to write out the contract that you signed, physically put your signature on it so you can see on a piece of paper in the physical realm what you signed for, and then pick it up and tear it up, or burn it, or do whatever. That is an important exercise.
That's why the character Robin Williams, Sean, says it's not your fault. It's not your fault. Living under that for so long,
yes,
and the persona that's come from it. Will is still brilliant, but he's not aggressive and passive aggressive and mean, and pushing people away.
100%. He lived in a place. I'm going to punch you before you punch me.
Yeah, all of that.
Yeah.
So I think too. Then now we're at the place. The last couple minutes here that I think is worth saying. If this isn't true, right? If this isn't true,
the thing you signed for,
and I've believed it for 20, 30 some years, and it happened to me. So experientially, it has power because it happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
If this isn't true, and there's not something wrong with me, and I'm not an idiot, I'm not stupid, then the beautiful question comes, so Jesus, who am I?
Yeah.
How do you see me? Who am I to you? That is, so 5 episodes to get to the last 2 minutes. That's what,
Let me
from
say it
shame to healing to freedom looks like.
Absolutely, man. Let me share what we shared about grace last episode, because this is where we've been heading the whole time. Grace is the empowering presence of God that empowers you to become the version of you that he sees. He doesn't see you burdened by shame. He doesn't see you covered in your cloak of sin. Right. He sees you the way he created you, with Trinity DNA as a beloved son.
Can you receive that?
Can you live
and that's
that
just
way?
A theological high ground. When you get into the personal reality of how he sees you, that's when it gets wild.
The names come.
The names come. The naming. Instead of the name idiot. No. That's not your name.
Yeah.
You're my,
You're brilliant like the stars.
Yeah.
You're not subject to the voices of the enemy. You're the one that silences them.
Yeah. And if I was, going to move, we've told some of those stories in hearing God's voice and relating to God in intimacy. That series is really important to this exchange.
Oh yeah.
You do want to make sure that you can hear from God's voice. So I would, if you're joining us somehow, some way in episode 4 or 5 of From Shame to Healing, I want to encourage you to go to the previous series of episodes about hearing God, how God wants to show and tell, how your desires matter, all of those things that shame can arrest, he wants to resurrect and employ in this process of helping you get free.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Any last thoughts?
Last thoughts would be, if you've got comments, listeners, we'd love to hear them. What's your experience been? We love hearing stories. If you want to share a story in the comment section or otherwise of how this has happened for you,
right?
Contract you tore up, how God revealed something, that you did or that happened to you, which again, I think they're pretty much the same thing. There's some things that happen to you by an external force, but those things that hold us in shame that we did, it's still something that happened to you.
Yeah. Even
if you were the initiator of the behavior. So love to hear what you think and have your engagement in it. And then Unwanted by Jay Stringer's a great journey through this. He lists a bunch of other resources in here that can help you on your journey. If you need someone, you asked me for one more thought. I gave you just 7 just now. But if you need someone to talk to, and somebody that you can trust, we have medics that we've trained at our weekends to listen well. If you reach out to us at exploringmore@zoe.org and you want to be connected with a medic to talk to about some of these things, who knows how to listen well, we can arrange for that.
And we know some counselors and we know some people,
Yep.
I mean, our medics are I think well-trained and gifted men, but they're not
counselors licensed,
but they're friends. And that's that's the position that they want to take. And yeah, I think that's a great recommendation. And if we can help you with more, we know some folks that we would love to pass that along. So thank you for this extensive exploration of this debilitating thing that God has done so much to deliver us from, and invites us to participate with him in the return program, and then the receiving the receiving ceremony of validation and initiation that can not only redeem that shame, but bring it into that to a holy place.
Yeah, redemption.
The redemption. Yeah. So thank you for being with us, and we look forward to seeing you next time on the Exploring More podcast.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of Exploring More. The landing page for this podcast is zoe.org/podcast. That's ZOWEH.org/podcast, where you can find the show notes and various platforms to which we broadcast. You can also find us and the Life of More by visiting Zoe on YouVersion Bible app, Right Now Media, our Facebook page, and Zoe on Instagram and Twitter. Remember, with God there is always more, and you were made for more.